Hello and welcome to another Blender tutorial brought to you by Louis Art. My name is Emmanuel Okafo and I'm wishing you guys a happy new year, compliment of the season. So to start this year with a bang, I'm starting up with a fire tutorial. So in this Blender tutorial, we'll be looking at creating a flamethrower inside Blender with the new MantaFlow fluid system. So this is going to be really fun for all of us, and I'm going to try to I will be showing you guys everything from scratch because this is a new tool in Blender, and so I want to introduce you guys to it. So what you can see right here in my viewport is the simulation. So I think I have up to 400 samples for this because it's a big domain, so I needed more samples to get like really decent looking details. But there are some parameters you could use. Right now it's slowing down my viewport slightly, but there are some parameters which you could use to reduce the viewport display, and I'm going to be showing you guys all of that in this tutorial. So let's start up. So here's the startup scene. As you can see, we just delete this camera. We have a very simple camera animation of the flamethrower. So this is just a proximity of that. Okay, so we want to emit fire from this object. So let's start up. So before we create the fire, we need a fuel to to ignite or make the flamethrower have lots of oomph. So the way to do that, we're going to be using particle system. So the Blender fluid system can work in conjunction with Blender particle system, which is really awesome because you can really control the particle system and just layer the fluid system on top of it. So let's go particle system and hit play. So you want to make sure to get real-time feedback. You want to switch it to no sync, so you want to make sure you're set to no sync. Okay, so now we can see it falling. So what we want to do is first go down to the field weight. Okay, so you don't touch anything, you just go down to the field weight, turn off the gravity. Okay, and now you get this nice looking effect, but this is not really useful to us. So we want to get something that has force, and for us to affect that, we need to play with the velocity. So the normal is okay because it's a plane, so it will not really affect our simulation. But what we want to play with is the object velocity, so that the motion of the object can influence the motion of the particles. Okay, so that's one thing we want. We also want some randomness, so that because fire has no control, so you want it to just be flaring anywhere. Okay, and finally we want to control the object aligned axis. So right now we want the particle system to be emit to this direction with force. So as we can see from the gizmo, you can see this red icon here, and you can see here it said x-axis. So we know that the direction we're looking for is the x-axis. So for us to then we can use that to impute or direct our particle system. Okay, so for the object align axis, we want to select the x location and set it to something, a high number. You just play with it, and you can see now the particles shooting forward. Okay, so right now it's a bit much, and let's reduce it to something like 5. Okay, so this is more appropriate for what I'm going for. I will also increase the randomization because without it, it's just looking so bland, and I don't want to add any force field for now. Okay, so we have it looking exactly how we want it. Another thing we want to control is the lifespan, because fire don't last for a very long time, so it's like seconds. What keeps it going is the fuel. So we what we want first of all is for the particles to emit for the amount of the frame of our animation. So the frame of our animation is 162 frames, so we can set it to 200, which is okay, or we could just set it to 162 frames, so we can get we can use or we can get the best from the particle system. Okay, so now if we played, everything is still looking good. What we want to play again with is the lifetime, so we want to set it to 20 so that it doesn't just go flying to infinity. Okay, so if you wanted to reach a further location, you can increase the lifetime to 30. Maybe if the person you're trying to burn is a bit further, then you can increase that. Disclaimer: this video is not promoting any form of violence. This is a peaceful video, and I'm just showing this is just 3D and for fun. Okay. Next, if the size of the particles is throwing you off slightly, you can go to viewport display and reduce the size. Okay. Okay, but we don't really need the particles for this instance. We can actually go ahead and hide it. So before we hide it, let's bake out the particle system so that Blender don't have to recache the particle system anytime it wants to simulate. So for us to do that, we go to the cache panel, but before that, one more final thing is the numbers of the particles. So right now it's 1000, which is okay for basic animation, but when you're dealing with fluid and fire, the more particles you have, the more fidelity it gives, more fidelity to your final fluid simulation. Okay, because if we just bake this out, it's not good. The result of the flame is going to look very blocky and spongy, so it's not going to get you a very nice result. So you want to increase the number of particles to a very high number, and that depends, of course, with the capability of your PC. So for the number I did for mine, I did like 20,000. Okay, so we can bake that. Blender particle system bakes really fast, and yeah, so you can actually even go higher to get more good looking results. So I can increase this to even 50,000. Sorry, I'll bake that again. So as you can see, it's baking really fast. Yeah, so that's all we need for now with the particle system, and since we are done with it, we can go to the render and set it to none. Okay, so we are moving on to the next stage. Let me just remove this annotation. Okay, so the next part is to assign the fluid simulation, or this is to apply the fluid simulation now. So we want to go to the physics tab, and you will notice there's nothing like fire, water. We just have fluid, which is really awesome because fire, it's kind of same thing. Anyway, so what if you see here for the types, you'll see we have like 3 main types. We have domain, flow, and effector. Domain is basically a boundary box which you use to set in 3D to tell the simulation to just happen inside that boundary box. So it's kind of, it helps you optimize your simulation, because if you let it to simulate with the whole scene, it's going to like take forever to bake. So that's the advantage of having a domain. Then we have flow. Flow is basically the object that emits the fire. So for this plane right here that's emitting our particle is also, can also be considered as a flow object. And then effector is basically like force field, winds, turbulence, and stuff like that. So we want the plane to be a flow. Okay, so now you might be intimidated by this, but relax, it's nothing complex here. So the first thing you see is flow type. By default it's set to smoke, but for something epic like this, we are going for fire. So we want it to be fire and smoke, and from the example I showed you guys earlier, you saw that we have lots of smoke to give it more epicness. So I'm setting it to fire and plus smoke. So for the flow behavior, we have this actually two here. We have the inflow, outflow, and geometry. So inflow, as I've explained before, it just continuously emits flame. Okay, inflow continuously emits flame. Outflow is like a drainage system. So if you want a system whereby if it comes in contact with the flame, it kind of kills the flame. So that's what outflow means. And we have geometry. So geometry is like also emitting flame, but it's just doing this like a one-time thing. So it's going to poof. So if you're looking for that kind of effect, the geometry is your guy. So for what we're doing here, we're going for inflow because we want a continuous spitting out of flame. So that's what we're going for. So I'm setting it to inflow. Okay, next let's go to the temperature. Sorry, excuse me. I drank lots of water. Um, Initial temperature. You don't need to worry about this. You can do your own personal research, but leaving it at default won't really affect your simulation. Fuel is just the amount of force. All this has to do with the oomph of the fire when you just hit simulation. So we're going to leave all of this as it is. But what we are trying to go for is the flow source. So we have the flow source. The first one is mesh, of course, and mesh is just basically is going to emit from the mesh the object. So if we hit play, if we try to simulate this, it's just going to emit from this plane, which is not going to look really pretty, and it's not going to give us the fire effect we're going for. So we want to set it to particles, and then we'll select the particles we created earlier. Okay, and you can also click on initial velocity, so it's going to come up with force because that's what we're trying to go for. Okay, texture is just basically you could isolate some parts with using the black and white gradient factor. You can tell Blender to emit fire from the white, the part of the object which is gray, which has white color, and from the dark color is going to prevent it from emitting fire from that section. But we don't really need to worry about that here, so we don't need to check that. So in conclusion, all we just had to worry about was setting it to fire plus smoke and adding the particle system here. Okay, so as I told you earlier, you need the domain to be able to tell Blender to just simulate a simple area. So and it's really important to simulation, so your simulation is not going to work if you don't have that, so we need to create a domain. Okay, and I'm just going to add a simple object, and that object is going to be a cube. So basically domains are mostly cubes because they're great at approximating certain areas. Okay, so let's see, we need to scale up the domain to fit the areas of our simulation. So you want to make sure that your whole simulation is inside your domain. So I want to eyeball that, so I'm going to bring up my particle system and just make sure the domain fills up the particles, so in every direction. So that's what you want to try to achieve. Okay, it's looking great. Now we can set up our domain. So for the domain setting, this is where most of the confusion may come up, but don't worry, it's still straightforward as earlier. So what we want to do is select fluid, and this time you know the reason we're selecting domain, so we're going to select that. And by default it's set to gas, so when it's set to gas, that means it's going to simulate fire. And if you're going for a fluid like water, ocean, then you will select fluid. So but we're looking for gas, so we're going to leave it as gas. Okay, and then we have our resolution division. We'll worry about that later, but if you increase this you get more high fidelity looking smoke. Okay, if I play this, I think we'll get some simulation. That's because I baked a simulation before, and I think it's reading from it. Okay, so I fixed that. So yeah, so selecting our domain, we want to this as I was saying, the resolution just basically means how much details you want with your fire. So if you want more details, the more you increase it, it's going to take longer to bake, but it's going to get you very nice looking fire. So you don't really need to worry about this for now. The collision, you don't really need to worry about that. You can leave it by default. For the smoke, usually it's set to 1, and usually it's no problem, but this will not really affect your simulation right now. But I found that increasing the number to 5 gives you more room when you're shading it, because you're going to import this density data in your shader tree. And if you baked a very high number, you have more leeway to increase the density of the smoke when you're shading the fire, so it can give you more cool looking effect. Because if you have less, you're going to end up with blocky looking smokes, but increasing it will help you with that. So the temperature, diffuse, if you want bigger fire, you can increase this. the viscosity, noise. So we don't really want that because the main driver for this particular simulation is our particle system, so we don't really need to worry about that. For the dissolve, I'm not yet sure because I've played with it, I've played with the numbers, but it seems not to have much effect with the simulations when I was trying testing it out. So you can leave it on or off, or you can play with it. And you can actually send me a message about your update. I have a Twitter account which I'm going to leave a link in the description, also my Instagram, so you can reach me if you ever want. So for the fire, we'll leave everything as default, but what we want to play with is the adaptive domain. So I've seen threads where people complain that the MantaFlow simulation is quite slow, and yeah, it's slow if you don't have adaptive domain checked. So to speed up your simulation, make sure you have adaptive domain checked. You will notice significant speed up with the simulation time. Yeah, so that's that, and we are good to go. And if we hit play, nothing is happening. And yeah, so the new MantaFlow has different kind of caching system. So we have three. We have the replay, modular, and final. So by default it's set to modular, and modular means basically you can bake it, you can pause it and check out the final result, and you can still resume the baking. But if you want to get like a nice viewport preview without actually breaking it out quickly, you can just set it to replay and you hit play. So now you can see the simulation working. Okay, so if you want to get faster viewport display, you can go to the viewport and reduce the slicing per voxels by voxels to 0.2 or say lower number, and you'll get faster viewport display. Let's see 1 or 5. Excuse me. Okay, so I think I spoiled it, but anyway, so you can go to the first frame, and if you want to refresh the animation, I think maybe it's a bug, and since this is still in development, you can pop into edit mode and go back to the first frame, and then you can refresh the animation. So yeah, so this is the animation and it's looking great. So, and also the caching, so you have to set this to the appropriate frame which you're going for. So this one we're going for 162, so you need to set that appropriately. If not, it's just going to bake 50 frames for you. So yeah, so that's all the settings you need to know for creating the effect. Finally, let's say we're happy with this simulation, and it's pretty awesome from what I see. It's looking blocky because we need to increase the resolution, and then we can get even more awesome looking smoke. Okay, so for the resolution, for mine I did like 400, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not ready to waste I'm not ready to like spend time looking at simulation, so I'm going to set it to like 150, and it should bake really fast. So for baking final simulation, I usually just prefer to set it to modular and hit bake, so it's quite fast. Plus I told you, once you just check the adaptive domain, then you're all set. The reason you're not getting fast simulation is because you don't have it set to adaptive domain. So this is actually real time, as you can see. It's quite fast for 150 samples. So I'm not going to bake everything, as I said. So as you can see, we have we have a better looking fire system. Yeah, so let's jump into shading. So the shading part is actually quite easy and fun. So bring up cycles, select the scale, which I should have named domain. Okay, so create a new material. We'll delete the principal shader and add our principal volume. and just plug it into the volume, and then you get smoke. So as I was saying, if I didn't increase the density of the smoke, then I should be getting some weird artifacts with this density, but I increased the value so that I could have more leeway to increase the density if I so please. So I'm just gonna set it to 5, and yeah. So for the fire, it's quite easy. You just increase the black body strength and set it to a higher number to get more fidelity. And for my own final result, I set the smoke to black, okay, to give it that kind of epic look. So of course I'm working with more resolution to get better effect. So if you want it to look even much better, you can increase the resolution. And yeah, so that's how to set it up. It's quite fast and responsive. Yeah, so yeah, that's it guys. I'm just saying yeah. That's it guys. Thank you guys for watching this tutorial, and welcome to 2020. This year will be a year of awesomeness, and boom. Yeah, by the way, if in case you're looking for freelance gig, I also do that. I'm going to leave my email in the description in case you're looking for an artist to do job for you. You can hit me up. I do that also. There you can find my portfolio to see the kind of skill level you'll be expecting. Yeah, so bye bye for now. See you next time.